Hi there, Louis here from BionicGym, and very welcome to our special Labour Day. We've got a promo code which will get you a great chunk off BionicGym, more than anybody's got off this year. So do look out for that, and it will only be active for a short period of time. More importantly, I want to talk about weight loss. A lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about weight loss, and in particular, what BionicGym can do and its role. So it can do wonderful things, and we just want to make sure that you have the right expectations, you know what it can do for you, and you know how to use it. But first of all, in relation to, and then, of course, we're here to answer your questions as well. What I'll do is I'll talk through some stuff in diet. I'll talk to approaches about diet, but I'll also send in your questions, and Ross here is helping me in the background. He's going to pop up questions every now and again. So your questions are really appreciated. They can be questions about BionicGym in general, and some people have already sent in some questions, and Ross is filtering through them, and he'll select some and put some up there. So please do send them in. They're appreciated, and other people are interested in the same thing as you are. So let me start off by talking about weight and weight control. We say kind of weight control rather than weight loss, because you want to be at your optimal weight for health and also looks probably for the rest of your life. And long-term weight control is really difficult. Very few people actually achieve it anymore because our society, and particularly our structured society, our built society, isn't designed to help people have a normal, healthy body, okay? And so people are fighting their evolution, and they're fighting their environment in order to get a healthy body. And this is why, 3/4 of people are either overweight or obese. It's a frightening statistic, but we only need to look around, and this is a reality. And it's a reality that most people are on diets as well. 50% of the population are on diets at any given time, and yet we still have 3/4 of people overweight. So our approaches aren't quite up to the challenge. And it's tough because people are fighting the fact that we no longer have to exercise during the day. We can take our car to the gym and take the escalator up to the gym, and then think we're brilliant at the gym, then take the escalator down again and drive home. We don't have to build in exercise throughout the day. But this is one of the things which BionicGym maybe can help people with. The other thing is just availability of food that really wasn't there in our evolution. There wasn't ready food available all the time. And we can go around grazing all day long. We're designed to be hungry. And so a lot of people work with diets, and diets by themselves tend to fail long term. You'll get extraordinary results, obviously, if you don't eat. Yeah, it's as simple as that. You lose a lot of water quickly, then you lose a lot of fat. And that's great, but it tends not to be sustainable long-term by itself. And it's just that, you need to reset the body in order to achieve long-term goals. Very few people have the willpower and the capacity, and you wouldn't wish it upon them anyway, to actually be in a strict diet for the rest of your life. So that's the first thing about kind of diet. If we can go back to the previous one, Nico, thanks. So diet for the rest of your life tends to fail because they're just impossible to keep with. And those who do keep with them, wonderful, congratulations. But life tends to be difficult. Diet is very good in the short term because you can lose rapid amounts of weight in the short term, but what the studies show is that it tends to bounce back up again. It tends to bounce up an awful lot less if you add diet and exercise. I'll come back to diet and exercise in a minute, but secondly then, exercise. Is exercising enough by itself to lose large amounts of weight? If you want to change your metabolism, walking is much better than not walking. And 80% of the health gains you'll gain is just moving from doing nothing to walking, or something that's kind of quite easy in inverted commas. So absolutely walk. It's so much better than not walking. And a step up from walking to sprinting and really intense exercise, the benefits are front loaded. So any amount of exercise will help you an awful lot from a health perspective. But from a weight perspective, a small amount of exercise tends to improve your health and your body and your shape, but not your weight that much. And we all know it, you go to the gym, you work out, you burn 400 calories, you're chuffed with yourself, and you eat the muffin on the way home. So it's a reward system. Or you go for a pint on the way home, or whatever, after playing the football match. And the exercise, it seems, will stop you accumulating weight. This type of exercise, about even just 100 calories of exercise per day should be enough to kind of stop you from gradually increasing your weight. But it won't reset your body such that the weight will decrease. And that's obviously what most people in this situation want. So how much exercise would you need to do in order to lose weight? Well, either high intensity exercise, and this resets your body. Your muscles grow, your muscles all of a sudden able to sink a lot of glucose, sugar, and this kind of dampens down the sugar surges and troughs that people go through. And these changes to your body enable kind of much greater long-term weight control. So very fit people usually have a lowish body fat percentage, and they don't necessarily have to do vast amounts of exercise. But what they do is exercise very intensely. They're cardiovascularly quite fit, and you can do that. But most people can't or won't. So then there's kind of low-level exercise, and there's been a lot of studies on this. If you just go for a walk for half an hour a day, this is brilliant. And from a health perspective, it's just fabulous. Absolutely do it. And you probably won't gain any weight. But what they tend to see is that people who exercise a bit more, they also eat a little bit more. And, it might be this part of this, I'm exercising, therefore it's a reward, or, they're hungrier because they're exercising. And they're finding you need to do at least 1,200 calories of exercise just to make up for the additional amount of food that people eat. So you need to do a lot of exercise, a few hours quite often, just to make up for the fact that you're increasing your appetite because you're exercising. So this is one reason why a lot of people go for a walk every day and they don't see their weight plummeting. But if you go for a walk for 6 or 8 hours every day, you quickly get past that 1,200 calorie mark, and then you're into big deficits. And especially if you add in some types of other more slightly intense exercise, you can reset your system, you can reset your appetite and stuff like that. So exercise by itself can bring about a lot of weight loss, but it needs to be a large amount of exercise. The next thing is diet plus exercise. This makes everything easier because the diet is really good at creating that caloric deficit. And, there used to be a kind of simplistic calories in, calories out. Life and the body is certainly a lot more complicated than just calories in, calories out. But looking at it simplistically, the diet is really good, reducing the calories in, and the exercise can increase the calorie expenditure. And you need to create this deficit where you're consuming more calories than you're burning more calories than you're eating. And in simplistic terms, that needs to happen. And the easiest way to do it is to mix diet plus exercise. Now, there are particular body hacks and tricks which will accelerate a lot of this and a lot of the benefits. So we can move on to the next one. Thank you. So we call these kind of some body hacks. And let me talk for a minute about metabolic fitness. So your metabolism, that's kind of your rate of energy expenditure for, in simplistic terms, it's kind of your body's functions. And there's this kind of concept of metabolic fitness, and it's essentially the ability of your body to adapt to whatever it takes in or nothing. So that if you take in drink a can of Coke, you're not going to get a huge surge in glucose. You're able to get that, you're able to dampen that surge because your muscles are set up such they can soak up all that glucose into the muscles, and it doesn't necessarily get deposited as fat in the same way. And you don't necessarily get the same surge in glucose or sugar through your bloodstream, which then plummets because you produce a lot of insulin then. And then it plummets, and then you're hungry again and you need another Coke, and you go back up again. So that's one thing you can do if you're kind of metabolically fit, if your muscles are able to absorb glucose. The other aspect of it is that they're able to produce glucose, our sugar. So we need to keep our sugar at a very defined rate within our body. If it goes too low, you collapse. It's simple as that. People will get, people with hypoglycemia, low blood sugar levels, they feel dizzy, their heart races, they might feel sweaty, kind of like BionicGym sometimes. This is without exercise. Feel faint, irritable. These are all signs of low blood sugar, and the brain stops functioning well, and obviously you continue to decrease your blood sugar level and serious effects. But your body is designed to make sugar, and of course how it does this is it takes fat primarily. It takes the sugar reserves to use those up, but it takes fat as well, and it transforms fat into sugar, which you can then use. And this is the kind of the way that it can overcome some of these troughs, peaks and troughs. Your muscles can soak up sugar, and then it can produce sugar as required. And the liver it takes fat and produces sugar as well. So in addition to the kind of glycogen reserves and sugar reserves that you have there. So metabolic fitness is really important for your ability to control your sugar levels, which is almost a requirement for long-term easy weight control. You can always fight your body, but it's much easier to work with it and have a nicely humming body that will sink sugar and be able to live without food for short periods of time without you collapsing. Okay? So one of the things about some of these body hacks, and you may have heard kind of about intermittent fasting and ketosis and some of these. A lot of these techniques now are essentially partly driven towards improving or depleting your glycogen reserves or your sugar reserves. So people can enter into, say, a keto diet, you knock out your carbs. And if you knock out your carbs, that knocks out kind of sugars and easy sugars. So you knock those out, and then you gnaw into them, okay, just by living, okay, and by living, because you can't burn fat that's circulating around, you'll end up depleting you will deplete your glycogen reserves, and then your glucose levels, blood sugar levels, be low and flat. And in this circumstance, it's quite easy to produce, to use the production of, you use that fat in order to produce pyruvate, complicated area, but you use that as your energy system, okay? It's kind of like a sugar or carbohydrate substitute, because you don't have that reserve anymore. Another thing is intermittent fasting. So a lot of people, they find that if you eat the same number of calories but squish them all together, the body behaves really differently. And again, it's the old idea of calories in versus calories out. Is a kind of quite simplistic thing, and in a thermodynamic sense, of course, it kind of has to be true. But in the real world that people live in, calories in versus calories out is a simplification. And so if you eat all your calories in one meal, this is going to be a lot better for you long term from a health perspective than if you spread that over 4 or 5 meals or even 3 meals. So 1 meal a day, people who are on that long term tend to have much improved blood sugar profile and, of course, fat levels as well. So intermittent fasting will help the depletion as well, because while you are fasting, you're digging into the reserves and they're not being topped up all the time. And if there was a way to kind of deplete these reserves, these sugar reserves quicker, that would be wonderful. And I'll give you a little hint. There is a way to do that, and we'll be talking about that later. Can we move on to the next one? Lovely. This is Ross in the background. He's I should have the camera on him actually, if you want to come around any stage. He has a nice glisten of sweat on his brow. He's so he's double jobbing here as well. He's sweating away, stimming away with BionicGym, and doing all the technical stuff. So I'm very grateful. So the approaches. Well, there's training approaches. There's low and steady. There's with diets and specific diets and timing. Okay. So approaches to weight loss. You can train, and this is approaches with BionicGym now. Okay. So you can either train voluntarily and get very fit, and that's wonderful. Or you can train with BionicGym and get many of the benefits even without the extreme training. Okay. So BionicGym, a few things seem to happen really quickly and really well. Whereas the resting heart rate seems to drop down quite easily. That's an indication of underlying cardiovascular fitness. If your heart is beating slower, just in its survival mode, so to speak, just when you're lying down, it means that your heart is of a good size and it doesn't have to beat that frequently in order to supply the body. And so that's a good indication of your cardiovascular fitness. You can also train with BionicGym, use it at high intensities, and use it at high intensities a few times a week. And what we showed in the lab was, with lots of volunteers and lots of different groups, so everybody from kind of spinal cord injury to people with COPD and cystic fibrosis, with people with obesity, with people with diabetes. All doing studies in our laboratory and the laboratories in several different institutions as well. There were 5 institutions, third level, that were involved in the various studies that we did. And also, of course, on normal people as well, on normal, healthy students as well. And we found that basically, unsurprisingly, BionicGym technology can increase the heart rate. It can increase the calorie burn when it's related to the other. On a polar strap or heart rate monitor, they extrapolate calories from heart rate, but of course they are slightly different. And in the laboratory circumstance, which do the golden measure of kind of metabolic gas analysis, there's a kind of a mask goes over your face, and it measures how much oxygen you consume and CO2 you produce, carbon dioxide. And that's what burning is. If you're burning calories, and calories is a term of heat, if you're burning, you're adding oxygen to, say, sugar, and you end up with water and carbon dioxide. It's like magic, and you breathe out the carbon dioxide. So you literally, you're breathing out fat at the end of the day, because it goes from fat to sugars to water and CO2 and carbon dioxide. So it's kind of quite magical. But so you can train with it and reset your body. And that's great. And everybody should train intensely if they can at some stage, because it's just good for our health. Our bodies need to be challenged. And so you do that, even if you're kind of going on the low and steady streak for a while. And a lot of people using BionicGym, they need to use it at low levels for long periods of time before they can really graduate up to the intense workouts. And that's fine. You're starting where you're starting. If it's difficult for you, just move down a notch and keep it going for another hour. It's as simple as that. So in the low and steady training, this is how one of the things that's become increasingly obvious, and Tressa in our female community, she's a kind of great example of this. She recommends that people use it at low levels for long periods of time. And there are huge advantages to this. One is you get used to BionicGym, and then it does mean that your body, your muscles begin to train with it and adapt really quickly. And then even after a few weeks, you'll find you will be able to go up higher and train at higher intensities. The second thing is just burning calories for long periods of time. It gnaws away at that, at your reserves, and you just build up the calorie burn. So, as I was saying, with exercise, it takes a large amount of exercise to really overcome the hurdle of additional appetite that people get and additional foods that they end up eating quite often. So you need to do a lot of exercise, and the easiest way to do a lot of exercise is to leave BionicGym on for hours at a time. And a lot of the enormously successful people that we've had in terms of kind of weight loss, some of them haven't even bothered to diet. Some of them have just done BionicGym and they use it for 4, 5, 6 hours per day. They're doing it while they're watching TV in the evening. They're doing it while they're working. Obviously, you can't, depending upon your work, in our office, everybody can come in and have it on. So that's really good. So Ross, who's only with us a rainy day, as they say in Ireland, he's doing it now and he was doing it earlier. So that's kind of wonderful, and it just means you can build up more hours. And there's no substitute for building up that calorie total. The second thing it does is it trains the muscle, and it trains the muscle to soak up glucose. And your glucose metabolism is just key for your long-term weight control. It's as simple as that. So you want to train those muscles, and you want to deplete your glycogen. So what happens is, you're using BionicGym, and what's slightly different from BionicGym compared to, say, walking, is that in walking, say if I go for a walk, I'd be just using a kind of fat as my substrate, as my energy source. So it kind of sounds nice if you'd be using fat, but what happens then is your sugar levels are kept high, and your sugar levels, your sugar reserves are kind of kept high, and your blood sugar level doesn't kind of dip down sufficiently quick enough. So what we want to do is we want to dip down into the sugar reserves. And you do this by BionicGym, because BionicGym is really hungry for sugar. Most of the time, we've kind of evolved to be really efficient. And in evolutionary terms, or however God made us, it made us really efficient at burning fat. And we can take a lump of fat and we can walk all day on it. But what we want to do is we want to do the equivalent of walking all day, such that we're not completely tired. We want to be using sugar as our energy source, because sugar is the energy source that's reserved for high intensity exercise. And the particular type of muscle fibers we target, they're sugar hungry. And we kind of double down on these on specific programs as well, like glucose gobbler. A lot of people say if they're eating glucose gobbler, or sorry, if they're using glucose gobbler, it can affect their appetite quite an amount. And that basically shows it's depleting the sugar reserves, driving your blood sugar down to a healthy level. And your blood sugar will then be replenished by the liver, etc. So, okay, now with diets, if there are some diets that are intended to just kind of deplete your system, and ketosis is one of them, low carb diets is another, and intermittent fasting is a third. So low carb and ketosis, keto diets, they're kind of similar. The idea of low carb is that carb is quick to burn and it kind of upsets your system. And if you replace the carbs with stuff which is not burnt so easily, with fats and with protein, you'll feel satiated for longer, and things will be better. With BionicGym, the carbs that you eat, and of course, like with low carbs, you don't get these surges in blood sugar level. So carbs are converted very easily, very quickly to sugar. So they're kind of like quick sugars. So you can take in literally sugar, and you can take in fructose, which is almost similar to it, alcohol, which is a sugar, or you can take in carbs, which are in essence lumps of sugar joined together. That's all they are, and then they're easily spliced up within the body, and then you have this massive amounts of sugar rushing through your system, which is not what you want, because you'll get a quick hit and then you'll get a fall and you'll be hungry again. So low carb diets kind of aim to eliminate these fluctuations in blood glucose level and help you that way. BionicGym, of course, can help you this way as well and facilitate this type of dieting enormously. For keto, it's a step further. For keto, people more or less eliminate carbs, or almost eliminate carbs, and then the blood sugar you're producing, well, your liver produces sugar, but you've depleted your sugar reserves kind of quite quickly. Well, quickly is a relative term. Some people take 1 or 2 days to get into ketosis. 2 days to plus is the normal. Some people a week before they get there. And this is how long it takes for your sugar reserves just to go down to a level where they're kind of depleted, and then you start producing ketones in lieu of this metabolic pathway. So you produce ketones only when your blood sugar is really low. And exercise could get you in there, but walking, as discussed earlier, doesn't use up that much sugar. So you need to do an awful lot of walking. High intensity exercise would do that too, which is great. But not that many people are kind of willing to do high intensity exercise, especially during kind of when they're on a particular diet. And sometimes the keto makes people feel a bit iffy. As they get metabolically fitter, a lot of the side effects of keto tend to diminish. And of course, because BionicGym uses up sugars preferentially, we can accelerate people into keto really easily, really quickly. So, and quite often, you're in keto maybe, and you eat a slice of bread, and you're out of keto. It's just so depressing. But what we can do is, basically, as you're eating the bread, you have your BionicGym on, you have a blip in your blood sugar levels, and you're back in keto again. And that's the way to do it. Use BionicGym to drive the metabolic processes for low carb diets and for ketosis in particular. With intermittent fasting, the whole idea of intermittent fasting is that you're not taking in nutrients for most of the day. Huge benefits in terms of medical benefits, in terms of everything from longevity. If you do this for rats, you can get kind of rodents to live an extra year or two, and they have very short lives, just by how you time their food. You can have 2 sets of rats, and forgive me, the animal lovers, these are research I read. You have 2 sets of rats. One you feed every day, and the other you feed the same amount, but only every second day, or once a day instead of 3 times a day. And they eat the same amount, but the ones that eat less often live longer and are much healthier. It's extraordinary. So we need our body to be depleted. And for the carbohydrate aspect of it, BionicGym can really accelerate its depletion. Even as you're kind of like, I'm doing a small amount of exercise here in the background, you may have noticed, even as we're talking half an hour now, time flies, forgive me, it's 200 calories. that I've burned just talking to you here. So, but the key point for this is that it's 200 calories, and that's mostly sugar that's being burnt. So that's one that will accelerate people into ketosis, it will accelerate low carb diets, and it will accelerate everybody's kind of metabolic fitness, such that the body can help absorb the surges of sugar, even if you're on no diet at all, and you like your Coca-Cola. Cool, is that the last? Lovely. So that's kind of a short synopsis of it. And I'll talk through it again a little. There are two things that I want you to know. One is there's a code that's at the bottom of your screen. And then the second is, if any questions, you send them in. Ross is filtering them now and we'll put them on the screen. But the code is available today, and it's Labour20. And this will get you 20% off BionicGym. So at the risk of sounding crass, grab the opportunity now. And so any questions? Cool. Carol, how are you? Lovely to have you here. BionicGym keeps my leg muscles looking like I'm doing a lot of weight training. My heart rate doesn't get very high, but the quality of my muscles is quite amazing. I like that. Like when I was racing bikes. And does anyone else have this? I'm a 56-year-old woman. Fabulous, Carol. Congratulations. Yes, people report this really frequently, especially in the early stages. They say things like, my weight hasn't changed, but I can fit into my jeans again. Or that the shape of my body has changed. So you're certainly not the only one. And it's fabulous. And it's kind of back to, I think we need to get beyond as a society, beyond just measures of weight. And we need to kind of move into, are you fit and healthy? And quite often you see people who are like classically some sportsmen or women, they can be really quite heavy, but they're metabolically fit and, they're fantastic physical specimens, but they just, but they have more than 10% body fat, Evan has a question. Hi, Evan. Are there potentially health complications from long-term use of BionicGym with prolonged muscle stimulation? Even the BionicGym manual says something about unknown long-term use as well. I suppose this, by definition, BionicGym hasn't been around long enough to really know for sure the long-term effects. Myself, I've essentially been using the technology for 20 years, and it's been a lifesaver for me. The underlying technology, electrical stimulation, has been around since essentially the 1950s. And since the versions that have been readily available since the 1980s, there aren't any serious side effects on the presumption that you don't have a pacemaker and some other implanted electrical device. If you have a metal implant as well, that can redirect the current. But one of the beauties about electrical stimulation, sends the tiniest amount of current and it just tips the nerve to excitement. And then the muscle doesn't realize it's been excited. So long-term stimulation, there have been people who've, I remember kind of one study on scoliosis. So scoliosis is a curvature of the back. It kind of looks like an S down your vertebral column, down your spine. And what one of the studies was doing was essentially putting electrical stimulation at night at low levels on one side and then lower down on the other. And he would try and pull the spine back into the normal plane. So they're no longer S-shaped, but the spine would be like an eye going down. And they were going on for years and years with this. And so, the people have been doing stimulation for 20, 30 years every day. Probably not to the same intensities that we get, and they wouldn't get the same kind of benefits because the metabolic effects are much lower. But it has been used for that. Do read the manual if you have any medical problems, of course. That would be beneficial. Kathy, hi. First off, I love the BionicGym. Wonderful, thank you. It's really satisfying to see positive effects on my muscle and circulation. Fabulous. My question is about heart rate. I'm a woman in my 50s, normal BMI, and have a resting heart rate of 65. So for some reason, no matter how intensely I use BionicGym, even at level 100 and fire it up, my heart rate only goes up to 75 to 82 beats per minute. This is when I'm lying down. I do get warm and slightly sweaty. I'm not on any medication that affects heart rate so I'd suggest two things. One is use it standing up and fire it up at 100. I'm surprised your heart rate doesn't get higher. Certainly, if you're not on any medication, a lot of people are on kind of beta blockers or kind of heart rate medication or blood pressure medication. But fire it up intensity 100. If you feel you go to 120, there may be something limiting your output on the device. So that would be one possibility. If it feels easy and you're at intensity 100, very few people are saying fire it up is too easy. Get onto customer services on that one, I'd say, just to, in case you're Mario. Hi, Mario. Just bought mine en route. Great. Hope it arrives. And assuming I do my part, it lives up to its promise. Brilliant. You do your part, BionicGym will do its part. Love that. Hey, Tressa, housework, daily chores, walking the jog with BionicGym for the win. So Tressa is one of these people I said did extraordinarily well, and she's our dynamo in the female community, and she's helped so many people there, and quite often just by telling people how she's used it and her experiences. So that's wonderful. And I know I saw another review and they were quoting Tressa, and basically she was saying she was inspired by Tressa, but she thought, oh, holy whatever. Tressa was burning, she kept a log of the calories burnt, and it was, 1,000 today, 1,200, 600 day after day. And that was one of the reasons why she did so extraordinarily well. Injured my ankle hiking in April and really began using BionicGym every day. Like I said, it's awesome, thank you. I talked to my cousin about buying it and it changed her whole body, she said. I tell everyone about it, brilliant, thank you. This is, we're still a small struggling company. So it's wonderful that people share this if you can and tell others, that's wonderful. Particularly to have a nurse. I'm a nurse and have a degree in exercise science, and BionicGym is exceeding my expectations. It's also, a lot of people are wondering, like Mr. Cavallo earlier, I think it was, Mario, it's just great who people understand science in the body and are in the health profession that are working. That say it works because you know your stuff, so to speak. Even are any clinical trials and studies who evaluate long-term use of BionicGym, specifically any health complications that may occur? No specific long-term studies, lots of electrical stimulation. There are some people who have been doing it for 10 years, I said, and things like scoliosis and stuff like that. And there's some people who, and therapies, have been using it for decades if you had a particular spinal injury, for the sake of argument. Specifically long-term with BionicGym, no, because hey, it's new technology, so to speak, or it hasn't been out there enough for it to be long-term use. Long-term benefits you'd expect. Rachel Robbins, hi. Which programs do people tend to get the highest heart rate out of, and without the intensity becoming intolerable? I understand it usually depends upon the person, but the indication would still, any indication would still be useful. Great. First thing is to use it standing. The second thing is to increase intensity during the session. So you kind of get used to it for 10 minutes, and then you can increase intensity again. And okay, cool. So use it standing. Twinkle toes is a good option for most people. And the reason for this is it tends to bring in the calf muscle. Now, the calf muscle, we don't do any electrodes there, but we target the nerve to the calf muscle in the thigh. And this, it will kind of, as you bring up the intensity, some people even raise up into the tippy toes, like I do. Others don't, but there's still this pressure against gravity all the time. Your heart rate when you're standing, doing this equivalent amount of exercise, will always be higher than if you're lying as well. So if you have a recumbent bicycle, that will be give you a lower heart rate compared to if you have you're on a bicycle standing, like going up a hill or something like that, but you're doing the same amount of work. So standing increases the heart rate. This is just due to hemodynamics, dynamics of the circulation system. Nancy, hi. I've been using BionicGym standing for 2 months. I'm not sweating. What's the best exercise? Okay, high intensity, and you need to use it. What's the best exercise? Twinkle Toes is the best program probably, or Fire It Up. One of those programs. Yep. On to the next one. BionicGym. How can one determine if the pads will fit their thighs? Cool. So I'm guessing by the pads, this question is related to will the BionicGym system fit their thighs? I know Ross had our sizing chart up earlier, and this is one of the things which we're going to redo, and this is partly at Tress's behest. So we've got 2 sizes, small and large, and each of them has an extension, or small to large, and then large to extra large. I call them size A and size B because for me it's easier. But in the smaller of the 2 sizes, if you're essentially below 5'8" and you're less than 210 pounds thereabouts, choose this one. That's just a simple rule of thumb. If you want to kind of measure your thigh circumference, you can do that. And if you're less than 60 centimeters and you're below 5'8", go for that one. Some people use a larger wrap because it's kind of maybe more convenient. But if you're a small stature and you're using a large wrap, the wrap will kind of bubble up. I don't know if I can see that. Yeah. So at this portion here, if your height is small, your wrap will, this bar here will compress and kind of bubble out. And we have our roving cam. So this area here, if you're small, will compress. And then this kind of bubbles up like that. And it's not pretty, I have to confess. And but it's fine. Lovely. So so that's kind of the key cutoff point. I know there was a question sent in earlier. I don't know if it will come up or not in relation to someone who was under 5'2", or what was the minimum height. And 5 foot is probably the minimum height. What a maximum minimum height and maximum thigh circumference. So minimum height is realistically about 5 foot. And you can, if you're smaller, push it together. The arms. So okay, I can't see that easily. No, don't worry about that. So this part and this part will kind of just move together like that. Be a lot closer. Ouch. Those of you who are familiar with it, I'm getting a stimulation of my fingers there, but it ends up a lot closer, and then there's a bit of a bubble here. So if you're under 5 foot, that's what will happen. It's not ideal, and also the electrical stimulation will feel slightly different. The electrical stimulation will feel a little bit different as well. And then maximum thigh circumference. So we have that in our chart again. This chart can be found on our product page. So go to BionicGym, and then there's a sizing chart there as well. And you'll find the exact thigh circumference. I think it's in the small size, 60 centimeters around the upper thigh circumference. And in the larger size, probably it's about 84. It may come up here again on the screen. My able assistant is sweating away. Okay, yeah, so in the smaller size, 60 centimeters without the extension. And then we've got wrap extensions as well. And they just will enable somebody with a circumference up to 75 centimeters to comfortably get it on. And then the large size is 72 centimeters. So if you're over 75 centimeters, regardless of your height, you need the large size. And there's a rule of thumb, kind of a simplistic thing: if you're over 210 pounds, go for the larger size, even if you're small. And it will mean that the wraps will be close together, which isn't ideal and it's more awkward to put on. And it kind of bubbles up slightly, which means you won't be wearing your tightest pants over them, but that's BionicGym for you then. Cool. Nancy, I've been using BionicGym standing for 2 months. I'm not sweating. What's the best exercise? Sorry, have we answered this one before? No. So use it. You've been using standing. Use twinkle toes, high intensity, and if that doesn't get you sweating, even try glucose goblet high intensity will be kind of slightly different, or fire it up will as well. That should be, but it's generally intensity is the main thing. And if you're maxing the machine out at 100%, let customer service know. Is it okay to place the wraps in all the different positions of my legs to hit different muscles? I mean, always on my upper legs, of course. Yeah, interesting question. You can place them, 1 or 2 centimeters left or right, and find what works best for you. In terms of hitting different muscles, probably the best way is to bring it up the back of your leg such that it's over the gluteal crease. Gluteal crease, that's your bum crease, ass crease, forgive the crudeness. At first sticking to the medical terms. So the crease at the back of your bum going down into the thigh, you can shift it up above that, and that will bring in the glutes a lot more. You can shift the upper electrodes out slightly, and this seems to be kind of optimal even. I always say midline for people, because we have we have to be clear and straightforward and keep things simple for people, especially at the beginning. We don't want people using putting the electrodes on the inside leg, because that can cause kind of quite a what's the right word for it, like a harsh contraction on your adductors. So your adductors are the muscles that bring your legs together, and they're the inside of your leg, and you don't want too much stimulation there. They do get stimulated, but they don't get overly stimulated if your position is midline. The other thing about moving slightly outward is that some women find that it makes them more likely to go to the toilet, and by moving the electrodes slightly outward, the top electrodes slightly outward, they prefer this. The other aspect, the other muscle you can really bring in is iliopsoas. Iliopsoas, I was telling the lads here recently, it's the fillet steak muscle. If we were a cow now, it would be our fillet steak. And it's muscle at the top of your thigh that goes to your spinal column. And it's a big muscle. It's really important to sprinters. And by raising the front electrode up, you'll bring this in an awful lot more. And some people find you may actually kind of start bending over. You can do this if you want to target that muscle, particularly with, say, bionic quads. We target this muscle a lot more. And you'll find that you're kind of bending forward, because this muscle is a hip flexor. So basically, it flexes your hip. So, and if your foot is in position, locked there, everything that will happen, if you have a hip flexor, you'll bend instead. So if your hip has to flex one way, either your leg goes up or your body goes down. So bringing the electrodes up will do that for you there. So front, back, and at the bottom, you can move the electrodes in slightly, but really has little overall impact. We want to VMO, the vastus medialis, particularly the oblique fibers down here beside the knee, So we want the electrode here is optimal. Hope that answers. Rachel, if you choose to use them lying down, what is the most comfortable program to use it at a highish level? Flick through them yourself and find out what works for you. What worked for me is lying down. I always end up in twinkle toes, or maybe fire it up would be what's most comfortable for me is that like I'm on a physio couch. So my back is supported at 45 degrees. I'm on a couch and there's pillows between me and the side arm of the couch. So I'm at 45 degrees and then I'm down. My legs are slightly flexed because I put a rolled up towel just under my knee joint. And it's just that slight flexion of the knees. That's really good for me. And then in this situation, for me, any of the standard programs work really well. Some people have kind of tight hands, or they enjoy bionic quads a lot more, and everyone is slightly different. So lying down as well, for me, I wouldn't want to get too much glutes going, because I'd be bouncing around the place a little. So that would be quite the same for me sitting as well. I wouldn't use too much glutes. That's more behind you. Hi, Grantis. Is there a weight limit for it? There is a circumference practicality for it. So what we find is, particularly a lot men tend to, we carry our fat on our bellies, and our thighs tend to be kind of much thinner by comparison. So for nearly every guy, basically, if you can wrap the electrodes around, or the wraps around, if you can fit it there, that would be fine. We've had some people who are in different categories of BMI, and we've had some people with BMI of 50 and 54 in our studies, which is, say, my height and would certainly be my weight again. So the sizing chart as well gives a specific kind of upper limit for the thigh circumference. So we can see it's got, I can't see it with extensions, is that 84 centimeters with extension? 35 inches, I think it is. Forgive me, I should know this offhand. I wrote them. The main thing is that the electrodes can be properly positioned. This has been a wonderful Facebook Live, and we've had lots and lots of questions. I think we're going to kind of come to an end in 1 or 2 minutes. Ross has given me the signal to wrap it up. So I really want to thank everybody. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for listening. And do use that Labour 20 code, LABOR, for we use American spelling. And Karen just squeezed in the last question. Hi, Karen. Should I cover the gel after each use if I plan on using it daily for least wear and tear? Surprisingly, no. Depending on how you use it. If you're sweating, it needs to the sweat needs to evaporate off the gel. So if you're not sweating, the electrodes need to be tacky. And basically, if they absorb too much water, they lose the tackiness and they slough off. So you let them dry by keeping the sleeves off them. And you just leave your BionicGym lying out on a table. If you're not sweating and they dry out, just dab a little bit of water, and this will enable them to kind of go sticky again. So just dab a little water, just a drop or two of water, dabble it over the surface, and that will rejuvenate it. Okay, very last question. Cool. Farah, how are you? Hello, I'm a 56-year-old female playing tennis. Cool, congrats. Resting heart rate is in the 40s. Just bought BionicGym 1 week. I'm trying to figure out the best way to increase heart rate and lose weight. Any tips would be great. If your resting heart rate is in the 40s, that's unusually low. and you'd be in the top, in terms of centiles, you'd be in, 1 in a couple of hundred people, females would be in that heart rate range. So things not to look at the heart rate, but look at other factors. So if you're after weight loss, use it for long periods of time, use it at an intensity that you can tolerate, and keep on using it. Consistency is the key thing for weight control. For weight loss, you want to use it for 4 or 6 hours a day. You can lose weight with just 1 hour a day, but the more you use it, the more rapid the changes will be. And people kind of like to keep that as a motivation. They like to see changes quickly. And as I was discussing earlier on, you need to do a lot of exercise in order to overcome the extra eating that people do with exercise in general. So use it consistently, and for weight loss, and add in a diet as well, particularly a keto, a low carb diet, or intermittent fasting. And if you're using it intermittent fasting, use it to deplete your glycogen reserves, your sugar reserves quickly, and then enjoy it. Jules, how are you? Hello, Dr. Crow. Thank you for BionicGym. You've been using it for a while. 5, 6, and very heavy. Just want to say thank you. Well, thank you. It's been a tiring and long journey getting here, I have to confess. And this is why we do it. Because there are easier ways for a doctor to make money, let's face it. So it's just wonderful to hear the feedback, and thank you. Really appreciate that. And so thank you to everybody for listening. Do share if you can. Really appreciate it. And with this, goodbye. Thank you.